crunch time under the Jeep, getting the front cross member fixed up. Let me go ahead and show you what I'm dealing with. This is definitely something that you want to be aware of before you do any kind of 3-link long arm where the lower links are connected to the cross member. I already took off most of the paint that was over on these brackets, but this is what I'm looking at and what I'm talking about is there's a crack right through here going up into here. This one's going up here. Now I've already re-welded this because it started to crack a bit here. So I welded this to hold it in, but then it started flexing here. Now on the other side, it's the same problem going up through the bolt holes. I'll add a picture right here of my friend Nick's where this whole section in the middle from bolt to bolt snapped out. Having that fail is a pretty big issue. And so I'm gonna go ahead, and the only person that I found that made anything to deal with this was a company called Out of Hand Fab. And they make these plates that go in here that you weld to the original bracket to stiffen them up and give it strength. Now, it's a little bit too closed, so I'll go ahead and have to flex that open more and weld this in place and do this on all 4 sides. I'll have to make some adjustments for the front side of this because I have my 3-link in the way. And then my rock sliders on my driver's side, I have a bolt hole that goes through it. And it's pretty tight with brake lines. But I'm gonna go in, cut through this, top drill a hole in that one and in that one so it stops it from going out. Weld that shut and then weld that plate on. Here is the relief cuts that I made on the cracks and drilled out the top. Did that on the other side, you can see through the hole there as well. So I'll be welding front and back side of these. And then once I've done that, I'm gonna sand them flat and then go ahead and get this side on. The cracks have been welded up, sanded down. That one I left a little bit loose because on this piece, it just goes right around it. So I was able to hammer the back side of this and spring it open a little bit so it sits flat. Might have to do a touch of grinding on this side, but it's pretty dang good. I'll get this welded into place here, and then if I have to do some grinding on the holes here, we'll get her done. Here is the passenger rearward one, which had plenty of clearance for me to go ahead and burn in. So I burned in this side here, here, along here. I did a 2-pass up here, not the greatest because there's not much clearance. And then when I go to the other side, I'll burn along the edge here, but I don't even know if that's really going to be necessary at all. But that is a lot thicker. Hopefully everything holds and nothing cracks doing that. Now on to the other sides. Well, I figured I'd go ahead and record a little bit more because there's still more to be done to kind of show off. So when I lined this up, this hole was perfect for the most part. This one was, I had to sand this and file this back out so it matched the stock one. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take some weld and weld that together and kind of fill that in a little bit to give the bolt something to ride on right here at the bottom, right along this hole, and make that a little bit stronger for it. Well, this is the other side of the driver's side. I had to cut these 2 pieces off, so there's a thicker side on the back side of this front 3rd arm mount, upper long arm control arm. I tried to bend it, and then unfortunately I had to bend it so much that it just cracked it, so I re-welded a root in there. Sorry for the shaky hands. And then welded around that. And then I welded in the rear hole on this one instead of the front. That reminds me, I need to weld in that real quick there on the front, but I welded in that hole as well. So I'll make that final pass on the front there on this one and let her cool off. I'll start throwing some primer down and then we'll go ahead and get it all fully painted up and dried up, put this side up, call it a day on this one, and then go to the other side. This is the finished result, the look and vibe on it. Now, your stock bolts are too short with the 2 extra pieces welded on there, so I'm gonna have to, I'll wait for whatever reason since out on the outside bolts depending on where we're at. So I'm going to have to go ahead and get a longer version of these to actually make sure that they hold, which should be a joy. Not too bad, just costs a little bit more money. We have the crossmember fully welded up and installed and torqued down. So this is what we're looking at here. The stock bolt was a 12 mil by 1.75 on the pitch, and then the length was 120 is what it was on a 10.9 scale. And what I ended up finding was that I could find around me was some 12 1.75 by 140 and 12 1.75 by 150. So that's the extra length that you're looking at on the 140 versus 150. So you can probably get away with 130 and be right on the end there, but both of those worked out just fine. If I really wanted to, because I was being whatever, I could go ahead and just cut some of the extra off the 150. I'm not too worried about it. And then this side was a severe pain because of the brake lines, and I was too lazy to take off the full exhaust, and so I kind of welded around it. So the top portion that's up there by the brake lines looks like crap, so hopefully it holds. I didn't want to go ahead and disconnect it from the other side, but I looked up the torque specs as far as I could find. Don't quote me on it, but what I torqued mine to, not that anybody else, if they see this, decides to look at this, these went to 35. I saw online the automatic trannies can go to like 50, but I was like 35 for the manual. I'm like, that's good enough for me. Blue Loctite. And then I used the stock nuts that are on there with the flange, and because they're 10.9, I couldn't find really a whole lot. Project JK supposedly was quoted to say 90. I didn't see that anywhere, but I looked up the torque specs for a 12 mil, and at 8.8, supposedly the one source I said 100, and then a 10.9 was 135, so I figured 90 was not a problem. So I put my 4 to 90 on there, and then I just got washers on there because I couldn't find flanged that were 140 or 150. So I ended up just putting some fender washers on there to go get it tightened up. But we are good to go. Time to start putting an exhaust back together so that way I can put the skid plate on.